123 Feedway Studios. My name is Jeff, and in this video, I'm going to talk about free stuff. I'm going to talk about the best, in my opinion, free synths, free drums, and free effects VSTs. Just the whole gamut of VSTs for your DAW. As I said in a previous video, I'm using Acoustica Mixcraft 9 Pro Studio. I got it a few years ago when it was still 5 or 6, and over the years I've upgraded it, and honestly was very inexpensive and still is, and probably will do just about anything you need it to do. At least it's fitting my needs right now. I've tried a few of the others. I've tried Reason and Ableton and a few of the others, and they're fine. But for the cost of this and for all the free stuff that kind of comes with it, this really was the best deal for me right now. The song that you were listening to is called Peace Be Still, and the version that I'm playing around with is Lauren Daigle. And what I wanted to stress is that everything you heard is all using free VSTs and free effects, right, on a very inexpensive DAW, and it sounds really good. It's hard to tell in this room because, as you can tell, just using the mic on the iPad, it's hard to hear me, and it's a little boomy in here. But overall, it sounds really, really good. So what I'm going to do, and I'll list in the description, the VSTs that I used on this particular song. There's quite a few. And like I said, everything that I'm using on here are free versions. Some are demo, some are just full versions that happen to be free. And so we'll move ahead, and I want to show you the screen and kind of talk through what I'm using, why I'm using it, and where you can get it. All right, so stick around. All right, so what I'm going to do is I want you to look at the screen. It might be a little hard to see, but basically I want you to, I'm going to play it again, just a little bit of it, and then I'm going to kind of go down the list of what I'm using and why. So as you can hear, once again, I got the iPad a little closer, so maybe heard it a little bit better. But basically, the first thing I want you to look at is Keyzone. Keyzone is a free VST, and the reason that I want to point out the ones I like is because I had to wade through a whole lot of garbage to find things that I thought sounded pretty good. So the first one that I'm using on this track, the first thing I'm using actually is some synth swells, but the first thing I have up here in my mix and my bus is this Keyzone Classic. And so I'm calling this up, hopefully you can see it, and I'm going to show you what I'm using. What I'm using is one they call the Steinway piano. If you get down here, the mid-range isn't great. The top is really good. Actually gets better, but you have so many different things to choose from, right? And I just felt like this one, again, for being free against the ones I have tried, is really good. I mean, you can tweak it up a little bit. You can change, the ADSR on it. Steinway, basic electric piano, Rhodes. So it's got a little bit of everything, right? So it's got their piano that they like. It's too muddy for me. I don't like it. The Yamaha is not bad. It's not as bright as a real Yamaha. And then the Steinway, which is the one that I really like the best of all. So I use that one, and you'll hear that with that kind of signature lick that they do at the beginning of that song. That's this one right here on the list. And I used two of those, right? So what I did was I took Keyzone and put it on itself, and then I changed this to the Lounge Lizard. It's a Lounge Lizard electric piano. It is a VST for free that I found. It's right in here, if you can see it, right here. And then it'll show you what I'm using, and here's all the different choices. I am using the Rhodes 1, and it's basically, I'm just taking it right out of the box and using it, and I think it sounds really, really good, right? Again, there's hardly any effects on it at all. I can change the volume to make it a little hotter in the mix from the instrument itself, which is probably better than monkeying around at this stage with the sliders, and we'll talk about that in later videos. So as far as pianos goes, that's what I use. That's pretty much it. Now I do have these two acoustic pianos that really is just the default that comes up, and I put those extra channels in there because, as you can probably see, I will break it up. So I'll do the intro part here, and then I did kind of the body, which is just basic chords, right? To kind of keep it going. There you go, and that's it. Just keep it going, make the changes. Now, as I get this thing built more, then I'll go back and I'll take all of this stuff out and I'll play it all the way through with all of the instruments. This is just a placeholder, right? So that's it for pianos. Next, we'll move down into the synth submix. All right, for our synthesizers, this is where it really gets in depth as far as what I use. So if you look at this, I have 5 different synth sounds, and all of them I believe are from different VSTs. So we're going to start with the first one. This is Cobalt. You hear that? It's kind of an electric piano, but it's got a whole lot of sustain on it. And also it's got kind of a panning back and forth reverb, and I use this right here in kind of a staccato, and I've got it panning back and forth automatically. So right, so that's got a real nice kind of ethereal kind of sound, and if you listen to the original version from Lauren Daigle, there's a sound like that kind of shows up every now and then. As you can see, that it's way into the track for me, is way towards the end. And then Tyrell, I've got several things from Tyrell, and I again, free and love it. Sounds fantastic. So this is the sound I'm using. Kind of a real heavy, dark pad. I tried it at different octaves, and I think this one suits the best. It kind of keeps the bottom end in there because there's not a whole lot going on really in the bottom end. There's a little bit of bass that you'll see later. So there's that. Then there's Surge. If you're looking for really synthy sounds and moving synths, things like that, I would urge you to look at Surge. It's extremely good. Let me play the first one for you. And then the Dream Pad one, called Glassviper, right? And again, all of these things are going to be very similar, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. But this was going to be similar to the Tyrell, but it's just different enough where I can pan it out in the mix, and it gives it a whole lot of depth to the mix. Okay, I really like that sound. I used the Dream Pad, the Glassviper, in different places for different sounds. It's basically the same sound, but I lifted it up an octave, right? So there's this one that's in that low octave, and this one's in probably 2 octaves above that. And then really my favorite sound on here is this gentle LFO chord. And this was actually one that came with the DAW. It came in Mixcraft. Mixcraft comes with, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of instruments already pre-built in, and basically what I was looking for again was some movement, and this one really fit the bill. So what I did here, again, what I'm trying to show you is that all of these fantastic sounds were free, but I also wanted to show you as we go along how I took this this free sound and I basically stacked it on top of itself, and I changed the EQ and I changed the reverb and the delay to make it pan a little bit differently. And as you'll see right here, I got this one 100% right, but this one's in the middle. And the reason being is because the effects on this will pan back and forth, but if I leave one on one side, it gives us kind of an illusion of depth. So let's hear this one. And you may or not be able to tell, I can, because I'm sitting here in the studio, that it's going back and forth, kind of in eighth notes, back and forth from speaker to speaker, and it's an octave higher. So if you put those two together, which I'll do that right now, so you can hear it. So what I've used most in this song, it'll of course vary from song to song if I'm writing an original or if I'm doing someone else's music. It depends on what they're using. And but on this one I used a lot of synthesizers, and I will tell you that free synth sounds on the internet, there's thousands and thousands of them, and I had to wade through quite a few, and I still have quite a few more, of course, that I didn't use on this. But these are the ones that I think are standouts. They're really, really good, and they're free. So I urge you to get them. And each one comes with presets, dozens and dozens of presets, so you can just use right out of the box. Or if you're like me and can program a little bit, then you're able to program it as well. So then we're going to move on to the bass. For the bass synth, I used Ample P-Bass Lite. Okay. I think it sounds great. It is the light version, which means there's a lot of articulations and things you can't get. But I've got some heavy chorus on it, so you probably hear that. But you hear that slap and that little bit of sting in the strings. I love this instrument. Now, I have purchased a couple bass things that I use in other projects, but on this one I just wanted to show you that you don't have to run out and spend $100, $200 on anything, but especially on the bass. Let me let you hear this. And again, it's very understated in this song, but I'm going to solo it out and let you listen to it. Again, for my needs and for this particular song, if you listen to the song, especially live, bass player's really not doing that much. This, to me, is so good because it gives you a little bit of that string sound. You could hear the string. It's not just a synth bass. A lot of the synth basses are good, and they have the deep tones that you're looking for, but they don't have that kind of realism that I personally hear in this bass synth. So it's Ample P-Bass Lite, and again, I'll put descriptions for all this in the, I'll put the names and for all this in the description tab. All right, for drums, okay, really I only used 2 drums, right? I used the MT Powerkit and the Drum Kit 1, right? And I've got a bunch of them on here, but what I like about the MT kit, which I actually didn't use the feature for the MT Powerkit on this particular song, but what I do like about this is, first of all, the sounds are kind of a rock. They really cut through a mix. Cymbals on any of the ones I've had are whack to me a little bit. These cymbals are actually really good and they cut through. But the toms, the snare, really kicks. And the other thing I like about this is that it has grooves assigned to it. So again, I didn't use that feature in this song. I didn't need to. But for example, if I do just a closed hi-hat, right? Now that's really fast because this song was 140 beats a minute, but I can go over and select any of these grooves. And again, that's extremely fast, and it's probably one reason I didn't use that feature. But I will take, I'm going to take one video and just talk about the MT Powerkit. I reached out to them. They're not going to make any more grooves or any more sounds, but it's very, very tweakable. It's a great thing to have that was free. Now, there are others, of course, that I'll talk about in later videos that I've sampled and used and all. But this one was the first one that I got, and it was free, and it was so easy to use and sounded so good. Now, the Drum Kit 1, the main reason I have used this one is for the kick, right? So you hear that kind of almost vinyl kind of sound in the background. It really sets that kick up in the mix, and I'm not exactly sure why, but it does. And so again, on the kicks, on the snare and tom, and on this the cymbals a little bit. We'll talk about cymbals in just a moment, but I used two. I used the MT Powerkit and the Drum Kit 1. I would urge you to check those out, download them, even if it's not the style of music that you need it for. Download them, have them in your arsenal. I have plenty of 808s, 909s, synth drums, plenty of that stuff. It's hard to find something that sounds real drum-like a real drummer. And I think the MT Powerkit for a free VST does a very good job of that, as does the Drum Kit 1. Now we're going to move on to cymbals. All right, really the last on my line right now are cymbals. So what I did was I basically laid down with the Powerkit, I just laid down just a basic hi-hat, right? Because I don't like using the metronome. I like to have it feel a little bit less robotic. So I did quantize this hi-hat, but I quantized it to like 90% instead of 100%. So it gives it a little bit more, you know, just it's not so on the beat, right? If I want to play behind the beat a little bit, I can, and it's not lost in quantization. But it's quantized enough where I can follow it with things like the piano. I desperately need something to follow with the piano. Again, not a big fan of the metronome, and on this particular DAW, it's one of the few things that I really dislike about it. It's hard, you can't really change much about the metronome at all. And we'll talk about this DAW in particular in a later video, but for right now, so I use the MT Powerkit for the hi-hat. I use the MT Powerkit for the ride. And again, mainly because it's a rock ride and it really cuts through, okay? And then I used a little bit for crashes. And it's more of a splash sound, and I'm not exactly sure that I like it or that I'm even going to keep it, but that's what I used it for so far. So again, free VST. Now, for the cymbal rolls, I used samples, and I don't think that there's anything better than using a sample. And I'll let you hear a little bit of this real quick. For example, this one. So well done and so realistic, right, to me. But the other thing I like about samples is you can shorten them or you can lengthen them, right? So I brought this sample up, but I needed to have a longer swell, right? So on this particular DAW, I just clicked a button and pulled it out, and it made it a longer and deeper sounding cymbal roll. And again, we'll talk about that when I talk about the Mixcraft product itself. On my library of samples, I have almost 30,000 samples, And a lot of it's not usable, frankly, especially for the kind of music I want to do. But there's a lot of these little type things that are buried in there that you can find and you can manipulate. And it's difficult to get a good cymbal roll or a snare roll or really any kind of roll on a drum machine or a drum VST unless you're really good at it, and I'm not. So I don't want to call it cheating because it's all cheating, right? But I'll use samples every day of the week if I can find one that works. Now again, I've had to drill through a lot of these and listen over and over and over again, and I've had to delete quite a few that just didn't do me any good, but they're free. Every one of these samples were free. I didn't pay for a single one of them, and there's quite a few that are usable. All right, so that's it basically right now. Again, I'll leave a description of everything that I used, where you might be able to find it. And if you have any questions, certainly comment below and I'll answer them as I can. Subscribe if you like the video. If you don't like the video, I'd like to hear that too. I want to be able to change it as much as possible to make it better. Hit the bell, do all that stuff you know how to do, and we'll see you next time. And next time we're going to talk about free effects. And that's a little bit more difficult to find and find good ones, but I have found quite a few, and you will find companies that offer free effects for a limited period of time, and that's of course to get you on their mailing list and all of that. But anytime you can get free anything but free effects, I would urge you to do that. So we'll see you next time around. Again, thank you for visiting 3 Feet Away Studios, and I look forward to our next one.